What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee and Cigars live stream on the Thursday Night Hang. I'm Jay, your host, and just joining us for the very first time. We do this live stream most every Thursday of the year, nighttime, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about coffee, we talk about cigars. Each week is different coffee, different cigar, and same things happen. How's your week been? Everything good? Today's going to be kind of an interesting episode because I've got this cigar that is got to be one of the oldest cigars we've ever reviewed on this show. It's very, very old. It's over 30 years old now, or 30 years old now. So what's going on? How's your week been? Let me know how you're doing. Devin's with us. What's going on, Devin? How are you? Good to see you. Mom's here. How's it going? Andrew Borja's with us. What's going on, Andrew? How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. So, well, let's start off with coffee, right? So today we got old cigars, but we don't have old coffee. We got coffee. So yesterday I was actually in Washington, D.C. because I was asked to do a tasting event at a law firm down there. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's do that. So I got up, it was kind of a last minute, not for me, it was a last minute thing because they asked me to come and fill in. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy to do that. But I ended up getting up at 4 a.m., got to the workshop around 5, and we started brewing the coffee, and then got on the road by 6 to get down into DC. Actually, Andrew, I drove by your house. I mean, I drove right down Alaska Avenue, and I was like, should I call him? This was like 6:30. I was like, should I give you a ring and be like, hey, or right around 7, I was like, hey, man, what's that donut joint? But yeah, so went down there. We did a tasting with 5 different coffees, and the coffees were a Mexican coffee from the Sepco Co-op in Oaxaca, and we also had a Tanzania, Kilimanjaro, a peaberry, really nice. We also had a Yemeni coffee, a Yemeni. I want to say Yemen Mocha Senani, but that's completely wrong. It's from the Holani. It's the Holani up in the northeastern part of Yemen. And we had a Brazil from the Datera Estates, something called a Sweet Blue. That's very pleasant, very pleasant. Brazil Sweet Blue. And we had India Mysore Nuggets from India. And I think that was it, right? Mysore Nuggets, Yemen, Brazil, Mexico. Was there one more? I think there might have been one more. I can't remember. Tony's with us. What's going on, Tony? How are you? Brian's here as well. And George One, congratulations to you, man. If I remember correctly, this is the 18th, and this is the end of your school year. So hope you're enjoying your first night of freedom out here. The weather's very mild and very pleasant tonight. Very pleasant. A little bit humid. Not too bad, but not too cold. So not bad. Donut Run. I think I was punching that into Google Maps, and I was like, Donut Run, is that the name? Couldn't remember. Maybe I'll try to go there on Saturday morning. Oh, George Reitman's here. What's going on, fellow Onoites? Excited for tonight's show. Thank you. Glad you're here. And it is great outside. You and Rusty. I saw Rusty had graduation yesterday, and this morning he was on a plane to North Carolina. So he's probably joining his wife, who's probably playing in that part of the country. So we may or may not see Rusty, but Rusty, if you see this later, man, congrats on your end of your school year. Awesome. So we did this tasting, went really well, and I was actually in and out of DC. I wrapped things up probably around 11. And there was actually a restaurant that I saw there 2 years ago when I was doing this same event. And it's a restaurant called Abu Nai. And Abu Nai is a Hawaiian restaurant, or that's a Hawaiian term. And I can't remember the name. I can't remember what the translation of Abu Nai is. Hey, Siri, what is the meaning of Abu Nai?
The Japanese word abune means dangerous, risky, and critical.
So Abu Nai means...
This answer is from thoughtco.com.
Thanks. So Abu Nai is, I guess, a Japanese word meaning dangerous, risky, and critical. But so I was thinking, it's going to have like Hawaiian food. They did have spam musubi. And if you're not familiar with spam musubi, basically it's like sushi rice wrapped around spam, a slice of spam that is encircled with nori, right? The seaweed, very popular in Hawaii. So I get there and I'm like, okay, let's see what they got. And they were like, oh, the spam musubi, $12. Like $12, $12 for spam musubi. What? I'm not buying that. I was like, I'm not spending $12 for no musubi. I go to 7-Eleven and get that for like $2 and 12. It was crazy. $15. They had like the abunai plate, which is like ahi poke, and poke is a type of fish. It's type of seasoned fish in Hawaii, raw fish typically. And a typical ahi poke is made with fresh tuna, chopped, and then it has a variety of seasoning. You can have ala air salt, you can have it with garlic, sometimes sweet onion, soy sauce, but always a little bit of sesame oil, right? Roasted sesame oil. That's what gives it the flavor. So I order it, and I was like, oh no. But I ordered it anyway. I was like, okay, I got to get something to eat. I took it in the car and drove home. And I finally stopped somewhere and basically it's just a poke bowl. Just like any poke bowl that you find anywhere. Like it had like, rice. It had edamame. It had, I don't know, whatever. It wasn't terrible. They put a bunch of like sweetened, I don't know, probably mirin and soy sauce, teriyaki a little bit into it. And, it was fine, but it certainly wasn't poke. And it wasn't. And then how there's the pickled radish that comes with your sushi, the red one. Like, I don't know. Do you guys that eat the poke bowl? Like, I'm really curious to know this now, because when they gave it to me, so they had the rice and they had all these like vegetables and everything like in little portions around the edge of the bowl. It looks like this, right? I took a picture. Somewhere I have a picture. Yeah, so it looks like this. It looks fairly decent, right? But look at the bottom there. That is that pickled radish. And I'm like, pickled radish is like a condiment that you eat between bites. Like that's like a whole slew of it. I'm like, well, am I supposed to mix that in? I'm like, I'm not mixing that in. That's ridiculous. So I don't know. Do you guys mix that in? Does that taste good like that? I don't know. I am curious, man. I am curious to know. Oh, Rusty's here. What's going on, Rusty, man? Good to see you. Congrats on the end of your school year. And it is great outside tonight, says George. Brian says, guys, great news. While I still need to sell 5 seats of my crab feet. Whoa, we sold out today. Awesome, man. Congrats on that. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. Andrew says, I can bring donuts. Yes, that would be awesome. And what we're talking about here is that I've been asked by Capital to come down and do a coffee and cigars tasting, 10 a.m. Saturday morning. So come down at the Capital Tobacco and Cigar, or Cigar and Tobacco, Bethesda, Maryland. I'll be there 10 a.m. So come down. Be a good time. We'll hang out for a couple hours, smoke cigars. George is having the La Lealtad from my father. Awesome. Yeah, let me know what you're smoking and what you're drinking. We want to know, man. We want to know. Andrew's having the My Father Blue with an evening appropriate gin and tonic. That's excellent. That's excellent. And Tony's having a Crown Heads Broadway Maduro Grand Tour size and a diet chair. That's of course. So that was my poke bowl. If you eat poke bowls, I really do want to know, like, how are you eating? Are you mixing it all together? It was perfectly fine. I ate it all. It was very filling. So, in that respect, it was really good. And, I felt like I got pretty decent value, $16 for it, which is not cheap, but it's certainly better than spam musubi for 12. And I was like, 12, not buying that. That's crazy. But today's coffee is left over from yesterday's tasting. I just kind of put it into a jar, what we had left over. This is a mix of the Mexican Sepco Co-op with probably, I think I tasted a little bit this morning, and I think it also has a little bit of the Brazil Sweet Blue from the Terra, because the Sweet Blue is a little bit milder of a coffee, so it doesn't really, it just, gives it a little more filler. It doesn't really pronounce itself. But the interesting thing about this one, and the reason I decided to use it for tonight, is that this coffee, the Mexican Sepco, gives off a lot of like robust kind of tobacco notes, like fermented tobacco leaves is like part of the characteristic of this coffee. I was like, oh, that would be, hopefully that goes well with our cigar tonight. So that's what the deal is. George Brightman says, in honor of tonight's theme, I'm smoking Opus X Forbidden that Carlito brought me from his personal humidor. Oh my. I don't know if my cigar can live up to that one. And sipping on a special Maker's Mark barrel picked by my friends at McClellan's Retreat. Awesome. All right, let me get some ice here. I got my glass. This is since I'm drinking this Mexican, it's mostly Mexican coffee. I have this glass that I had from the Hotel Roosevelt, which is just a hotel that's in Mexico City that I stayed at once, and it is very thick. Look at that glass. Like it's like it doesn't break. So I thought that would be apropos for our thing today. So today it's very simple because all we're going to do is pour our coffee and taste. So not terribly challenging. We'll use our little humidor here. Thank you, Rusty. Always a lovely thing here. George says, can you tempt us by describing the coffee? But so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the coffees that I used because George was telling me that it'd be nice to have like a cold brew. So I'm preparing a cold brew for that tomorrow. And then we're also going to do maybe some brewing demonstrations about how to brew coffee in a couple different ways. Plus also how you might be able to prepare your own cold brew at home. So that's kind of the plan at the moment. I really have to sit down tomorrow and really hammer out exactly, just because I've been so like busy with everything this week. Like it's been a fairly, when I started on Monday and was talking about what we were going to do when we did the live stream on Monday morning, I thought it was going to be a fairly relaxed week, but it turns out it got like busy. Like my brother needed a ride from the airport because him and his family were flying in from LA. So I had to get there early. And then that for some reason, that just really wiped me out. And I don't know. I got up at 5 for that, got back around, noon. I was like, I need to take a nap. But yesterday I got up at 4 and I was like totally fine. So actually I went to bed that night, like at 8 o'clock. I was like, I gotta go. I can't hang out anymore. I'm done. All right, so here's our coffee. You can see nice and dark. Like sometimes you brew coffees and it's a little bit on the lighter tonality side. This one we did as a big pour over. So these are 1 gallon pour over brews. And like when I say pour over, we're not putting into a machine and hitting the button. We're actually brewing this as a pour over in a big basket. So let's give it a taste. Yeah, this particular one, man. Some very robust, full-bodied, great character on the mouth. It's got right now, like before I said, it had a lot of heavy tobacco. Right now, it's getting more cocoa kind of notes. There's tobacco there, but there's cocoa notes as well. Like sometimes the coffee can be sweet. This is not terribly sweet. It's got this full body. Like this is the kind of coffee. This has the kind of character that if you added cream and sugar, like it would be very like chuggable. Like that tobacco and cocoa notes are strong enough that, if you were to like mix in sugar, like a little bit of sugar, maybe a little bit of honey syrup would be nice. And a little bit of, cream, half and half, just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. Man, it would be like drinking chocolate milk. Mm. All right. Am I missing something here? Let me see. I'm trying to see. Andrew's asking Saturday or Friday. I'm not sure what we're talking about there, Andrew. But Saturday is the event at Capitol. Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Well, yeah, Eastern. Of course, we're in Eastern. It's not like we're going anywhere else. Tony says he's still holding an original Old Man of the Sea Black Label for George. Oh, nice. Saturday, says George. Yeah, Saturday, not tomorrow. Rusty's asking, are you doing the fish sauce coffee? No. The fish sauce coffee was just kind of it was for the live stream, and I know you might have seen me post about it from the food market in Colombia. I did that because I was there and I had leftover ingredients last week, so I brought it down for the girls to taste and for the managers there to try out, because otherwise it would just get wasted. So if they want to put it on the menu, they're going to have to be up to them. But I must say that if you saw last week's live stream where I did this fish sauce coffee, the version that I did at the food market, I think was better. I used a different glass and a different quantity of coffee and water and ingredients, which I thought was better. Like, it looks better. It's a better presentation. Very small. Like, now we're like half of what we were doing on the show. So it's like, oh, I like that a lot better. And I was telling them, put on the menu, charge $15, go with it crazy. George says, don't give them the ideas. Don't give them the ideas. All right, so let us move now to our main event. So in November 18th, 1995, the Fuente family started a new cigar. They released a new cigar. They dropped a new cigar. I think George was there having a big party with Cigar Aficionado. They released this big thing, and George probably can tell us more about it. But basically, it was the Opus X, which arrived with great amounts of fanfare. I remember that very well. People were like crazy for it. I was like, oh, but what's going on with that? We got to get some. Because before that time, the greatest of cigars was the Don Carlos. Like, everyone was like, oh, Don Carlos number 3, the Corona. I was like, oh, get the Don Carlos number 3, Don Carlos number 3. I got a box. I was like, oh, got a box, but I could never get any more. So back then, like, Arturo Fuente today is a juggernaut of a company. But back then, those of you who may not have been into cigars in the 90s, it was a much smaller company. I mean, they were fairly well established by 1995, but I think they were still at that stage where they were still trying to grow. I've heard stories of like Carlito and his dad, like, being at the trade show. They couldn't afford a booth, so all they had was their hotel room, and were inviting people to come to the hotel room to learn about their cigars. I think that was like maybe in the 80s or maybe early 90s at the latest. I think by the time 1995 came around, they were definitely much more established. But I think George can tell us more about that, if that's true or not, or how the progression went. But this cigar was significant because it was what's considered Dominican puro. And a puro means that the cigar is made from tobaccos that strictly come from that country of origin. So when they say Dominican puro or puro dominicano, that means that it's only tobaccos grown in Dominican Republic. Like, just like we say, Nicaraguan puro, puro Nicaragua, or I guess you'd say puro Nicaragüense, it means tobacco only from that country. But nobody thought that. I think it was nobody thought the wrappers could be grown in the DR. Like, people were like, oh, the DR is unsuitable for wrapper production. Because back then, Connecticut shade grown in the Connecticut Valley was huge. Like, that was how everybody had cigars in the 90s, right? Like, when I started smoking cigars in like 1992, by the time 1994 came around, it was pretty much all Connecticut shade. I don't even know if we called it Connecticut shade back then. It was just Connecticut. I don't know. George will remember better than I will. But so when they came out with this cigar, and evidently the tobaccos for this cigar was planted in 1992, and I guess they grew it then, harvested in 1992, 1993, 94, and into 95. They're doing all of the pre-industry, all of the hanging and the drying from the barns, taking it into the pilons, and then doing the fermentation, and then doing the degassing of the ammonia, and then probably putting in the bales, and then storing them for, I don't know, aging. Yeah, they do the aging. And then by 1995 is when, I guess I don't know when they started rolling. I imagine they probably started rolling it early 1995. And they released it in November of 95. George says, I suggest we have an Opus X party for the next live stream, regardless of where we do it, and I can give a brief history of the family, the company. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds great, actually. And George says that the U.S. shade grown in the Connecticut River Valley, but they also used Cameroon back then. Oh, that's right. That's right. I do remember Cameroon. Cameroon and Canary Islands was also kind of popular, if I remember correctly. But either way, this cigar came out and people were just mad for it. Of course, part of that madness, part of that drive was by this point in 1995, the cigar boom is already going or already started to pick up steam. By 1997, the cigar boom will be out of control and cigar craze across America will be this crazy train that, brought a bundle of La Gloria Cabana Robustos to $115, which was astronomical pricing in those days. Today, it'd be a deal. Then it was like, what the hell is that? But I'm going to pay that money because I don't have any cigars or we may not have cigars. So that's where we were. And part of this whole hype, I'm going to say, about the Fuente was probably driven a lot by Cigar Aficionados. Cigar Aficionados out there, it is the premier magazine at the time. I guess it still is today for cigars, hyping cigars. Like, you've got like all these people on the covers that is just like, and everyone's going crazy for it. The hunger is growing at this time. So they said they're big behind what's going on with Carlito and his father. So it's like suddenly everybody and their mother needs to have this cigar. They're like, oh my God, we got to have it. And I also remember like back then, Fuente was still kind of boutique-y in that era. Right now, today, it's a big juggernaut, like I said. But back then, it was a little bit boutique-y, right? Like, you couldn't get the Don Carlos. I think that was the only one. They had the 858s, the Cañones in the boxes, but the regular release, the green label ones, the one with the green, that was pretty much it. And those were great. Like double Chateau Fuentes were like, oh man, you gotta, like I was smoking double Chateau Fuentes. And then once in a while they'd release the 858s in the Colorado Claro, the green wrapper. You're like, oh my God, that's salty goodness. It's like so fantastic. But this cigar comes out. And I'll be honest. So this is my experience. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today on this show is the last cigar that I have from the original box that I bought in 1995. Maybe I might have bought it in 1996. I did not write it down. This is prior to the dates that I used to write down the dates on the boxes that I buy. The first rolled cigars were 1993. Oh, okay. Oh, so 93, and then they let them rest for a couple of years. Gotcha. I wonder. George says the double Chateau Fuentes are still the bomb. I haven't had one in such a while. I need to, maybe this weekend I will try some. But yeah, anyway, I'll come back to that. I have a thought, but I'm gonna push that off for a few more moments. But this cigar comes out and everybody's mad for it, just mad for it, right? And I was lucky enough that I was, a regular at a cigar shop that was run by a guy that was a venerable member of the industry for a long time. This guy named Jim Gilpatrick, and he had worked for Ira Fader at Fader's Tobacconist here in Baltimore, which at the time was like the second oldest tobacconist in the country, or maybe third oldest. And he was like Bill Fader's number one guy. Like he was the man that ran the company for Bill Fader. So Jim Gilpatrick was very well known, but for whatever reason, I think they had a separation or something like that. So Jim left and did his own shop. And by the time that I moved back here or started coming back to smoke cigars in Maryland, I found my way to his shop. And he was a great tobacconist, like shining example of what tobacconists are about. Like very friendly, very open, welcoming to all ages. And back then, remember now, we're talking 30 years ago. I'm like 25 years old, right? I'm young. Like I'm like the kids we chase off today. So, that's kind of the forward thinking that character this guy was. And he was really, really great. And actually what really impressed me is that one day I've been going there for a couple of times. And then one time I left. And I was back then, if I go to a place that I'm new, I don't really like hang out and like, hey, how you doing, man? What's going on? I'm Jay, blah, 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 blah. I don't do any of that. I just kind of come in, maybe talk to some of the guys that are there hanging out and then leave. But I'm relatively quiet. And I don't remember introducing myself to any of the staff. And if you looked at my credit card, it doesn't have the name Jay on it, right? So one day I remember I'm leaving. I was like, all right, thanks, guys. And they're like, all right, thanks, Jay. Have a good one. And I was like, and I walked away. I tried not to give a response like, what? But I was like, what? How did you know my name? I haven't told you anything. Like, I haven't said nothing about who I am. How do you even know that? So to me, that's like a sign of really great and engaged service, right? You're interested to know who your clients are. But by this point, when 1995 rolls around, I'm fairly well established there. I've been buying cigars from them. I have boxes reserved in the humidor under my name. So I'm fairly like a regular, regular customer there. So getting a little bit of extra consideration for sought after cigars was within my realm of possibility. And luckily, they held some of these cigars. I think they had a limit, right? I think they had a limit like 5 cigars. So I got my allotment. And I happened to be lucky enough to get the allotment at the very last part of the box. So I got to keep the box, which was great because evidently there's none like this today. Rusty's asking, what was the original price of the box? This one I think I think the cigar we're going to have tonight was around $11.50 in 1995, which was crazy money. Like the Partagas number 5 or the Partagas number 10 or the Dunhill Partagas 110. I think at the time they were like $4.50, $5.50, somewhere right around there. So like to jump to $11 was like insanity. Like, oh, crazy. We're not going to buy that. Talk about. And Tony said people are still mad about it. Oh, the double Chateau Fuente. Yeah. And George says Jim G was a good man. He was a good man. Unfortunately, Jim, and I was there throughout his whole journey because I came pretty early in his startup with Rolling Road Tobacco. And we got to see his progression. He thrived during the boom, totally thrived during the boom. And you know what we had? The problem for Jim Gilpatrick was that, he had a fairly diverse group of people that came in, which was really great. And at the end of the day, one of the greatest issues that they faced, and to me, it was his greatest downfall, was here in Baltimore, we had a conservative radio station. And there was a conservative radio guy, commentator, kind of the Rush Limbaugh of Baltimore, right? And he would come in, he liked cigars, so we'd come in and hang out and smoke cigars. And, he'd talk and hold court and all that kind of thing. And people listened to him because, this area is fairly conservative where I live and where the shop was. So, it's the kind of place where like people are talking and suddenly they're talking about other people. They're talking about minorities, right? And they would be like, well, those black people. And I remember I would sit there many a times and I'd be like I didn't say anything because I'm just like, I'm kind of interested to hear the banter and to hear and to see how the mind works. But I'm thinking do I look white to you? I'm like, what do I look like? I'm like, what? I guess, when you're Asian, it's kind of like you're not, since I'm not black, it's not like, I guess I'm okay in some respects. I don't know. But, this guy was very of course, he's very much the Rush Limbaugh. And over the years, he would get more, he got like Rush Limbaugh and like America Today, they became much more extreme. And so he eventually died, which was a great thing. I have nothing. They say don't speak ill of the dead. I mean, the guy didn't speak positively of the living. So I have nothing complimentary really to say about the guy. Him and I had discussions, sometimes positive, sometimes, ridiculous. I'm like, no, dude, why would you do that? Anyway, the point of the matter is, what made Gilpatrick so strong was that he served everyone. He didn't care. At the outset, he didn't care. What really served him poorly was that he got wrapped up in the hype of all of this. He got sucked into the conservatism, started advertising on this guy's show. So it helped build debt, and it started to alienate his own staff, started to alienate his customer base. As an operator, as a retail operator, like, I welcome all. Like, I don't care who you are, what your belief systems are, as long as you come to us and you want to partake and you're not out actively offending other people or attacking other guests, we're going to treat you well. Now, I had a discussion one time with some mega clan kind of conservative guy, and he was like, well, if I came to your shop, you kicked me out. I said, no, we would never cook. I would never kick you out, because unless you started to act up with other people, if you come in, we're going to welcome you. That's the whole thing that I believe in, is we welcome people as they are. But he got to that point where he let all of that, interfere with the way that he did business, the way he saw everything. So it was like people started to be alienated. People started not to spend money. He incurred more debt. He grew his retail footprint without necessarily growing his revenue stream. So at the end of the day, he was forced to close, which was a shame. I mean, he was, and I feel. And today I still look back and think that it's really a shame, because the guy was at his zenith. He was a great tobacconist, like fantastic. One of the very best tobacconists I've ever, had the pleasure to encounter. He also allowed a lot of these other influences to make him amongst the worst. So, c'est la vie, c'est la vie. Anyway, back then, he got me some cigars, and I'm very pleased and very happy that he did so. I'm very honored. Andrew says, snobby cigar guys I know are either only Opus X smokers or only Cuban. Yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is, And Tony says that, no, it was the Opus X that's still, so, okay, gotcha. And George Brightman says that I think that Jim G was undercapitalized when he, I don't know. I don't know the state of his finances, but when he started, I thought that he didn't seem undercapitalized. I think that he was able to start in a way that was appropriate. He was at the very beginning of the boom. So, like, as the boom grew, people were buying cigars. So he was generating good revenue. He even opened a second location that, from what the guys that worked there were telling me, created even more revenue. But he created his own white elephant. Instead of staying in his original location and keeping it tight, he decided to move around to another part of the facility that isolated him more from foot traffic and ballooned his payments. And one of the regulars was also a banker that encouraged him to take on additional debt from the bank. And that all, I don't, like I said, this is all speculation, because I wasn't privy to any of the financials, but he didn't seem to be operating under stress. I mean, honestly, he was the guy that really kind of like opened my eyes to coffee, because the people there were like, they sold so much coffee through that cigar shop that evidently it floated the rent. And I was like, what? You float the rent on the coffee sale, so everything's gravy? Crazy. But yeah, but I like I said, I don't know that with absolute certainty. I just, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the original location. I enjoyed the original crew there. I enjoyed the original customer base. Like, it was a really great time. Unfortunately, things progress, things get spoiled, and times change. Now we don't really have a great place to hang out where I live. So it's like, which I think is to our detriment as a community, but what can you do? George says cigar shops are supposed to be havens of tolerance, not bigotry. Well, this is what happens when you listen too much to your local Rush Limbaugh. Just like, hey, too much radical talk. It's like, when you listen to someone that puts up walls of division and hate, it's like, how do you? And you start to believe that, you start to succumb to that. It's like, and Tony says, that's where I got into cigars. It's true. It's true. It is true. That was good times, man. Good times. All right, let's go to the cigar. So here it is. This is the Arturo Fuente. Actually, it's not Arturo. It's the Fuente Fuente Opus X. And this particular one is called the Reserva de Chateau. And I think this is the actual original box, right? I originally, if you happen to look at the link for this show earlier today, it said the Perfection number 2, and I thought that's what this was. It just says Chateau de la Fuente Opus X. It's a little bit dusty, but here's the front of the box, right? It's original label, seal, sello de garantía there. And this is the sliding box. This is actually, my understanding, this is the second box. The original had a peaked lid that you couldn't stack. It was really kind of ridiculous. I think they switched to this right away. I think they used that peaked one during the release. George Brightman can tell us more if it's true or not. And then over time, they went to this. And then in 1997, they discontinued this style of box and went to, I guess, the current one they're using. So at the bottom of the box, it says here, here it says, Opus X, 25 cigars, Chateau de la Fuente, rare, what does it say? Rare something grown, handmade in the Dominican Republic. Like this is some original release stuff. Like it's even got I haven't really cleaned this because it's just got whatever musty stuff is on there. George says the original boxes had the flat top, the real OG. Yeah, man, this is the real deal, I think, the real deal. So it had a little clasp here, and then you just slide it off. Now, I do have some other cigars in here that's just been stored here. I think at one point in time, I was putting all of my Fuentes in here. So I've got a bunch of, and I don't even know how old. Oh, look at these. Good, I didn't even notice this. Look at this. There's some old double Chateau Fuentes in here, both regular and Maduro. Like, it's so old. Like, I don't know if you can see this in camera, but man, if you saw this in person, there's like little sparkles glistening on the wrapper or on the cello. Like these, I have no idea how old these are, but these are definitely, like my mom and dad gave me these many years ago. I mean, we're talking like, these are easily got to be 20 years old because I've not really opened this box in like over the years. So, we have a little bit of damage. So you can see here, it's a little bit curved. So it kind of got, mushed in there, and it's a little bit worse for wear. It looks like there's some crinkling on the wrapper. Looks like there's a crack right here in the wrapper. We're going to pull it out of the cello in a moment, but you can see Opus X. All original. George says there was only one of those X top boxes made just for photography. I own the prototypes. Oh, okay. I got that little tidbit of information from one of the articles I looked at from Half Wheel. So, what? Those guys were they even born in 1995? No, they had to be. They're probably like babes in arms back then. Babes in arms. All right, let us get to our cigar. Now the problem here is that how do we take this out? Now this is Reserva de Chateau, meaning the reserve of the chateau, reserve of the house, is a 7x48 Churchill. So it's kind of old classic Churchill. Like, I think of Churchills today. I think of long cigars like this, but I always think they're thicker. Like I remember in my mind's eye, when I think of cigars, Churchill cigars from the 1990s, I think they're bigger. Like the ring gauge is thicker. Like I imagine them being like a 56, a 54, 56 ring gauge, like some kind of like substantial mother. But it's not. It's this. This is it. This is to that era. So, George says that stick might be dry. I hope not. It's been in the humidor the whole time, but we're going to find out. All right, I'm going to try to get it out of the wrapper, the cello. I don't even know if this is possible. I might just have to tear it. let's just tear the cello so we can open it and not drag this 30-year-old. Well, if it's 1993, then this cigar is 33 years old. All right, it is splitting, so that's good. So I'm going to split it. Dangerous, dangerous, it's dangerous. It's splitting along the glue line for the cello, which is all right. But I can feel a little bit of tackiness right here on the cello. All right, here it is out and free. After 33 years or 30 years, it's free from its cage. And it got a nice yellow. It's not heavily yellow, but it's a nice tint of yellow on the cello. And you could see it there. The band did create some, you know, rough, not rough, you know, you just kind of like folds in the wrapper. Devin says the yellow cello, yellow cello. Devin says, finally sat and lighting an Illusion Singolare with Elijah Craig 12-year C922. Awesome, awesome. And George says, that's the 48 ring gauge, accurate to Cuban standards. Beautiful, beautiful. And the Fuentes make their own cello, really? Oh, interesting. So there it is. It's got, actually, to my mind's eye, man, it looks kind of like we got this like hazy thing going on here suddenly. But to my eye, nice color. Like it's like a nice, like brown, walnut brown kind of color. Like that is very nice. And, you know, there is is that a crack? Oh, what I thought was a crack. Oh, was not a crack at all. So this is what I thought was the crack inside the cello. I don't know if you can see that very well. I can't really get, it's hard for me. Yeah, it's right there, right? I thought that was a crack inside the cello, but turns out it's just the roll of leaf. I see the band. George says, observe the sheen of dried up plume. So is there plume on this? I should probably take a photo of this for posterity. Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, this is like part of my own history here. Tony says, that's true. Cellophane out of wood cellulose, not plastic as it should be. Oh yeah, good point, good point. Is everything plastic now? I guess it is. Rusty says, should have been transferred to the Tupperware. I mean, this has been in the humidor itself for 30 years. So now there's when I smell this cigar, I'm not getting a lot, but what I'm getting reminds me of dried spiced beef. It's not intense, it's not heavy, but it's not like, it's kind of this nice medium presence of fragrance of spiced beef, dry spiced beef. Huh. Interesting. Now, how does it feel? Like, it feels like, you know, you're saying that it might be dry. I would not categorize this as dry. There's actually a really nice suppleness to my finger. Like right now, it feels very supple, kind of like a leathery, somewhere between aniline dyed, not aniline dyed, but somewhere between vegetable tanned and chromium tanned leather. Like if you found that happy medium between the veg tan hardness and smoothness, as well as the chromium tan like softness, like it's right there. That's what that is. And it, you know, when you have dry wrappers, like you feel that dryness, that kind of light abrasiveness on the pads of your fingers. There's none of that. It's very supple. It's very natural. It's very nice. Devin says, I like a 63 to 65 ring gauge stick. Oh gosh, but it might burn poorly if you smoke it too fast. I'm going to try not to smoke it too fast. I will try. And George says 22 different shades of gold in that band. Oh, really? Fascinating. Oh, relative humidity. Oh, gosh. All right, we're going to cut this cigar now. We're going to cut this cigar and do some cold drawing. Got the nice Cigar. I probably should have got a fancier cigar cutter. I didn't think about it till just this moment. Oh, that came off very nice. Look at that. There's the inside of the cap. Whoops. Here's the outside. I mean, that came off really nicely. All right, let's have some cold drawing. A little bit snug. Wait, whoa. So I've got that of my tongue right up against the inside of that cap cut. As I'm pulling on it, oh, there's something totally different than I ever normally tasted. Maybe like sweet lime, like sugared lime, but just very little sugar, but a lot of lime. A lot of lime, like a lime, like a lightly sweet lime with a little bit of like coolness, like a menthol kind of coolness. Firm draw, not snug, but firm, not loose, firm. Oh, that's some crazy flavor. Like that is like flavor that I've never even recall experiencing in a cigar. Like, yeah, really, like lightly sweet. I'm gonna write some of these things down. Lime, menthol. Oh, that's fascinating. Now here's something I should tell you up front before we light. I have struggled historically have struggled with this cigar, meaning that with the Opus X in general, I've struggled with it. Now, the thing that George was saying in 1993, these cigars of 1995 were originally rolled in 1993, or at least some of them were. I don't know if this is one of them, but perhaps. And over the years, you know, you buy Opus X and the feeling, and maybe this is because of the boom and they had such a heavy demand, and maybe this didn't apply to, maybe these criteria didn't apply to this cigar, this particular one, or this batch. But you would buy the cigar and, you know, it had this reputation of being not yet ready, that you had to put it down for a year, maybe 2 years before it really became something interesting. And I remember like it had, when I first smoked this, I recall in 1995, 1996, that this had like, I want to say black peppery character to it. That's what I recall now. And I don't know for sure. I mean, I can't be on, but I remember that I wasn't crazy about this cigar. Like I'm very like bearish on Opus X overall. Like people say, oh, but Opus X. I'm like, man. Like I'm totally almost not even interested to even try to buy them, right? Especially now that the MSRP is like only like $27. I was reading about this today and it was like, so this cigar $11.50 in 1995. MSRP evidently today is like $27.50 as well, $30. So I was like, oh gosh, you know, in 30 years, this really hasn't escalated very highly. But then all the you know, the retailers are putting extra markup. So $65 for this cigar is not an unusual price to pay. And that's what I recall. I thought I remember these cigars are pretty significant in price. So part of all of this, right? The scarcity of it, the difficulty in getting it, the high markup on it. It's like, and then my history of like not finding them terribly exciting has always been kind of like a dampener. Like I don't need that. I'd rather have the Don Carlos or maybe the regular green label. Those are very nice cigars. And I just, but now this one now, I don't know what these cigars were like back then, but man, these flavors that we're tasting today, in these aromas, like the dried beef, this with, you know, with the spice, and then the lightly sweet lime with this whole like menthol character. Wow, this is like whole nother kind of thing. Like this is like my inclination for our first category of fragrance and cold draw is excellent plus. Like these are flavors unknown, like unexperienced. So I'm saying 9.5. Now it's time for us to do some lighting. Cold draw heaven. And watch what you say. Carlito is going to see this. You know, none of this is meant in offense, but I can't be authentic or true. I can't be honest if I'm not honest to you about where my prejudices have lied over the years based on my experiences, right? So it's not that I don't like what they do or have any kind of, you know, ill will towards Carlito, but only tremendous respect. But it's also like I have to acknowledge it can't just be something where it's like, you know, because they're the revered company that it has to be all like accolade, because you know what? Nobody wants you to kiss their ass all the time, right? And nobody can respect people that kiss your ass, right? So, you know, and I do love a lot of the cigars. It's just that this is the one cigar that everybody has like raved about that I've always struggled with until now. Like this is crazy. All right, now let's do some lighting. And I got my cap matches here. There's even like a little bit of spice. Really, it's really like this lime, like a little bit of sweetness. But man, there's even this like on just those puffs there across the tongue. If you've ever been to Mexico and you've ever had like the fruit with the tahine, right? It's almost like there's a little bit of tahine on the tongue now, like. Wow, that's fucking crazy. Like that is just. All right, that's the light. Let's light this sucker and see what happens. Hopefully, it doesn't burn up and like. That would be horribly disappointing. So it is a bit tight. So the start off is tight. I haven't got too much yet, but we're going to see. George Sim, I think if I've been back in school before, I like to. I know, right, guys? Sorry. But, you know, you're always like, oh man, you're a good lighter one. I think there's a little bit of burnt character. I think that's because of the lighting to get through that. Plus, the draw is still a bit on the tight side. Maybe there's a little bit of like some kind of a spiciness to it. but it's still a darker ashiness at the outset. So now it's tight enough that I'm worried a little bit about combustibility. Or maybe not. George Fredman says it's firm, not tight. Firm, not tight is a good way to put it. It's got a nice general tobacco character. Like I can the best way that I can describe what I feel on the palate at the moment is like aged tobacco. Like it's not these flavor bombs that we have in modern cigars. Like this, I want to say something like this is kind of a throwback to the old days. Of course, it's a throwback to the old days because this is an old cigar. It is of that era. So there's a different level of approach to this. And I say that comparing to modern day cigars, not modern day opus, because I don't really smoke modern day opus. I haven't smoked. Now after today, I might be curious. I will be probably curious enough to see what modern day is like. How much has the opus approach changed since this time? Oh, it's starting to get a little bit looser. This is like a familiar but unfamiliar flavor. One of the concerns about a cigar that's 30 years old is that maybe it won't have the bones to offer flavors, to offer an experience 30 years later. Now, I did have the experience of, and that can be true for many cigars. I did have the experience several years ago of smoking a 70-year-old cigar. I believe it was Cuban. That was surprisingly, it was a Figurado, small Figurado. One of the guys at an event at Raul's place was passing them out, and it was actually a Nazi era cigar. So but it still packed flavor that was like, whoa, this is. You'd think that it'd be musty and just empty after 70 years, but it still had a lot. This is similar in vein. Like there is a distinct flavor to this cigar that carries on 30 years later. And I wonder how does it compare to the flavor of the day? So I was able to look up on Cigar Aficionado their review from that era. And you know what? I will try. I don't know if I put the link. Oh, I don't know. Actually, we won't. So this is the Cigar Aficionado's website, right? And oh goodness, ring gauge 48, length 7, strength medium, and the tasting notes is this medium-bodied cigar has gorgeous color. It has beautiful spice and nut flavors and a distinctive sweetness. $11.50. The review is from Cigar Insider, Cigar Aficionado, January 1st, 1996. So this is the same era. Cigar Aficionado back then gave it a 90 points for this. Now, if we go a little bit later to winter 95, 96, or right at the same time, this is the Tom Selleck issue. Now, I don't have the issue. I think the one that has Rush Limbaugh on the cover is the one that has this cigar review in it. So it doesn't have it here. And this one, this is the Robusto or Torpedoes. So we're just going to kind of like look to the review of the, which I think is the Perfection #2 of this cigar line, and see, generally speaking, what kind of flavor characteristics that cigar has or had back then. If I can find this. Oh, here we go. What we're looking for is correlation. And something that's interesting about looking through old magazines is you see some of the old cigars. Okay, now here it is. Figure out a blind tasting from the winter 1995-1996 issue. Here is the Opus X Perfection #2. Let's see what they say. I thought they had like deeper reviews, but maybe not. So the Perfection #2 has a ring gauge of 52, so a little bit thicker, shorter at 6 1/4 inches, but evidently the same filler binder wrapper. $12 US of MSRP. Again, astronomically priced. Like, for example, $12.50 for the Opus X. And let's look here. Arturo Fuente Hemingway short story, $2.85. Hemingway signature, $3.85. Ashton Cabinet, $11. What do we have here? Portos Indios Pyramid is #1, $6.50. What else is in here? What else do we have here? Cuba Aliados Pyramid, $5. H-Upper #2. Oh, that's not available in America. Ashton Cabinet #3, $7. Paul Gumerian Bellicoso, $8.20. What's the note? Oh, here, look at this. Davidoff Specialty. And Davidoff, always outrageous price, right? Davidoff Specialty, $10.30, right? So very, very, pricey on the scale, even back then, but not outrageous compared to other cigars that are out in that era. So it says beautiful oily wrapper. And so, maybe that translates to this, where it's no longer that oily, but that suppleness that we felt before the light. Wow, that was really, really interesting. It says the cigar has an excellent draw and is loaded with spice and nut flavors with solid notes of cedar. Oh, maybe that's that spiciness. Maybe it is a cedary kind of character to it, with a long, earthy finish. Interesting. So that's this issue. I also was able to find, George Sand says, given what you experienced on the cold draw, I think it's safe to say that tobacco hasn't mellowed too much. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. But it's changed. I mean, like, I think that if these notes of dried beef, or that's more of a fragrance, but if the flavors of like this lime with like tagine and this mentholy character on the cold draw, maybe they didn't do cold draw evaluations back then, but if that was part of it then, like I think that would have been worth noting in the review. Now I do have this issue here from the fall of 1996, so almost a year later. This is Smoke Magazine. I found this Kurt Russell's on the cover, and I think this one had another review. If I can find it, I probably should have put a. Back more. Oh, here we go. So these are okay. Now this one is the Opus X Robusto. This one they put a little bit more review on it, like CA had this much more data about the cigar back then. It would be fascinating to read now. But, But George, back then you were also involved in writing these, right? Okay, so now remember this is 5.25 inches, 50 ring gauge. So a little bit thicker than this one, definitely much shorter. So the pre-smoke, the aesthetics, it's a great looking cigar with a rich, dark Colorado wrapper, bordering on Maduro, maybe. This cigar is beautifully rolled, very rich, dark wrapper, smooth to the touch, very oily. Definitely that smoothness. Still holding smooth and oily to the touch. I couldn't wait to smoke this one. Now, these are all, now it may sound like repeating, but these are all separate quotes from the different reviewers that they're using. That's kind of how they write these reviews. Construction before lighting, excellent, firmly rolled and professionally capped, which we still see here. This cigar seems like it ought to smoke really well. Firm pack with no soft spots, very well constructed. I don't want it to go out. It's got a really lovely texture to the smoke. Now the smoke, construction after lighting. The smoke pulled through in a mild stream. They drew perfectly and burned evenly. The cigar lit evenly and immediately began a slow, even burn. Are we getting? I mean, it's definitely a slow burn. Like it's got enough resistance so that it's not like you can pull on it very hard. The cigar smokes well, developing a light gray ash that holds solidly. So far, we are definitely getting that light gray ash. It's not very white at all. Which what they say, the whiter it is, the more magnesium is in the soil, something like that. Now, here's the next category, how it's smoked, flavor. Full-bodied and very round, they are complex and continue to develop throughout the course of the smoke. Here's something to consider. Remember, this is 1995, 1996. The idea of a full-bodied cigar in 1995, 96 is vastly different than what we have today. Like this, I would not consider to be full-bodied. Maybe in 1996, yes. But in 2026, no, it's more medium, maybe even a little bit on the milder side of medium. Remember, back in this era, we're coming from a time of very lighter, cigars, lighter blending. Cigars like Pleiades and things like that are much more milder. Now, after the Nicaraguans started to become like to the forefront and brought a lot of that black pepper, a lot of that stronger spice, a little bit more of that ligero coming into the mix, we got a lot more robustness. So when we look at these reviews we got to remember it is contextual to that era, right? George Brightman says that the Selic issue was a pre-transition, big cigar, small aficionado, the opposite of today. I think there's a photo of me of that. Oh, really? We will look that up in just a moment. And that's an Aaron Sigmund edited version of Smoke Magazine, which styled itself as the anti. I remember definitely very anti. You gotta like take on the leader, right? The big dogs. All right, let's see here. What else they say for how it smoked flavor? Creamy in taste, wonderfully smooth. There was a richness to the body that was quite enjoyable. Starts out flavorful and bold with definite spice and pepper, yet an underlying sweetness, almost creamy on the palate. One of the challenges of reading something like this or reading other reviews at any time when you're trying to critically evaluate any kind of experience is that you could be influenced, right? Like perhaps let's say that bold with definite spice and pepper, underlying sweetness and creaminess on the palate. Reading things like that or hearing somebody make those commentary could easily like translate into your mind like, oh, I'm tasting that too, when maybe you're not. So that's one thing that if you're ever working with, tasting something with people, is to try to remember or try to remain clear from the external influence. And so it really takes a lot of confidence in your own ability not to be too easily swayed, and to be confident in what you can identify, to be like, I hear what you're saying, but but I'm not getting that character, right? And of course, we're talking about a 30-year-old cigar. It could be completely different. And again, we're here with this whole like bold with definite spice and pepper. Like, this is not Pepin Garcia pepper, right? This is not that. So if we're thinking, if our modern time is Pepin Garcia pepper, we're not. This back, and this is a characteristic that I remember back in these days, is that there was a lot of black pepper, which is part of the reason why I didn't like it. Right? I was like, oh, black pepper. In 2026, this cigar, I'm not getting black pepper. Like it's not an apparent thing to me. It's very pleasant. It's very refined. It's very well balanced. But I'm definitely not. I don't perceive pepper on the palate. Aroma is the next category. Heavy in aroma, mixed with wood or sweet, diverse aromatic notes, woody and earthy. So there's a little bit of that sweetness we got with the with that lime, a little bit of sweet lime. Woody and earthy is one of the other characteristics. And then the aftertaste, here's another interesting thing. Like, there is nothing light about the flavor of these cigars, but they left a very pleasant full-bodied taste in the mouth, no scorch or acidity. Okay, so I will definitely agree with that. There is a nice, very pleasant taste. Full-bodied, I don't know. No scorch or acidity, absolutely. Like, it's very clean. It's very smooth smoking. It's a really lovely experience to smoke this. But again, we're talking about 1995. Full-bodied taste, like there's a good taste to it. But again, full-bodied is a different. We have a different concept of what full-bodied is today. Like, full-bodied is like the revenge, like punching you in the face, or that Neanderthal that's just like on top of you, right? In modern times, right? We didn't have those experiences then. Like, that would have been way too much. This is even before the era of like the Onyx and and this is way before, like, Lito Gomez came out with his double ligero kind of stuff. So it's to me, as a cigar smoker, it's very interesting to read these reviews from this era. Like, it's like, oh, so fascinating, because it's like such a difference in time and the way that we enjoy cigars today. Right? George Shem's on to the Tabernacle from Foundation. The Lealtad was awesome. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. George says elegant. I would say definitely elegance to the cigar. Like, as we're getting more into it, it's not disappointing at all. Like, it's got a nice flavor. It's got good richness to it. It's not heavy, right? It's not heavy, but there's this beautiful flavor to it. I'm going to tap that out because it's starting to make me nervous. But look at the burn. Like, it's burning very nicely, very evenly. I mean, a little bit at an angle, but maybe that's because I bent the cigar at some point in time. But I mean, the draw is resistive, firm, like you're saying. But it's pleasant. It's a very pleasant smoke. All right, let's see here. They have general comments as well. These were the bee's knees, a fine smoke throughout. I'd recommend them to any experienced smoker. Tell me they're a bargain, and the manufacturer has a friend for life. Tell me they're a bargain. $11, $12. This is a $12. Back then, I think this is a $10 cigar. So they have a price structure for the way they grade the pricing in Smoke Magazine, and they have a scale here: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And this scores in a price category of F. Like, it gets an F in price because it's somewhere between $10.51 and $14.99. So between $10.50 and $15, which gives it the F category. So it's definitely very expensive. And I think that the way that this gentleman here is reacting. These are the bee's knees, a fine smoke throughout. I'd recommend it to any experienced smoker. Tell me they're a bargain, and the manufacturer has a friend for life. But I think that I think people who gravitated to this cigar back in this day, it's a very expensive cigar. $11, $12, very expensive. $60 today, very expensive. Like, it's not cheap. But if you like this, if this is what you think is like sublime and you groove with it well, like, I don't know if I groove with it now, like a modern Opus X, I have no idea. This I really enjoy. Am I having the kind of reaction that I have? Am I having the reaction to this today, right now, this 30-year-old cigar, as I recall having with something like the Mirfil Mare? I don't think so. But what I'm leading up to is that the Mirfil Mare is a $45 cigar today, right? And if I'm in the mood, $45 is, a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But you know what? Worth it, because the return from that money, you get a level of pleasure that is that's just not available in other cigars. If you're the kind of person that enjoys this cigar at $60, even back then, $12, it would be worth it. Maybe not maybe you don't have, if you don't have the means, maybe not every day, but once in a while. Let's see what other comments were left back in 1996. Perfect for the last cigar of the day. A great cigar to suggest to new smokers. Really? Like, this is the most sophisticated cigar of the day. And now remember, these guys are reading these reviews and these commentaries blind. They don't know what the cigars they're smoking. So, but it's kind of funny to see that. Like, here's the most sophisticated cigar, and this guy's like, great for new smokers. And maybe that's a testament to, like, that maybe it's not as dramatic as it may have been perceived by some, right? Or perhaps it's got such high quality to it. Like, if I think about it comparatively, and I think about the Mirfil Mare, if there was a new cigar smoker that was willing to spend the $45, I wouldn't tell them no, because it's not like some kind of like bomb of a cigar that's going to hit you and throw you down, right? And like make you like ill and want to like sleep for a little to recover, right? It's got beautiful complexity, smoothness, things like that. Perhaps that's where this gentleman is thinking about this cigar. It's got this great complexity, the flavor, balance, that even someone that's new would not be overwhelmed by it. That would be my interpretation of what he's saying here. As they can feel the superiority of the wrapper and overall construction, and not feel as though they're blown away by that, and not feel as though they're blown away by too much power. Okay, that's fair. And I don't think it was ever like a power cigar. I think for me, it was always like more of a black pepper cigar then, which I just didn't like. Another comment, the last one. I'm not sure if I was able to fully decide if I like these or not, so please send me several boxes for me to consider. George says, F for fancy. And Devin says, but those I would say are different kind of complexity. I treat good aged cigars like a COE Monsoon Malabar. Oh, I hear you. I mean, we can't. I can't. Cigars like this, 1995, or Fuente Fuente Opus X, right? Today, these are unicorns. Who really has any more of these? How are you ever going to get them? And if you were to buy one of these, like I saw this one review from Half Wheel from like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago for a cigar of this era, an Opus X of this era, like I said, it's $100. Can you afford to buy that? Do you even want to spend that? Depending on who you are. Like if you were to spend $100, $200, $300 for this cigar, if you're a modern cigar smoker, meaning that you came up in the modern era of cigars, would you really even enjoy this? I mean, you might, but I mean, would you find the true value of it? Would you find real value in it, right? Part of the interest for me is that I bought this then, and I've sat on it for how many years. So there's an interest to see what it's like today. If I bought this today for $200-300, would I feel like I'm getting value for it? Other than, I mean, the value would be to as an exploration of old world cigars, and maybe to smoke this alongside the modern iteration of this cigar and see how they compare and contrast. George says you are presently enjoying a substantial return on your $12 investment. Well, yes, I hear what you're saying, but we also have to consider 30 years of maintenance, right? That's a long time to hold on to. Like one of our friends, right, is he, unlike other people that I know, he does not maintain a well-stocked humidor. Like by no means would anyone ever say that his collection is a well-stocked humidor. He has, I think, a box, like a box. He keeps some boxes at a local tobacconist, and he's got a humidor in his house that is not even filled. And I'm talking about like a 50-count humidor. I gotta say, many times I think he's the smartest of us all, right? He buys what he smokes, and he smokes what he buys. And he's not bereft of cigars. He's always has something to smoke. Whereas myself and a lot of people that I know are inundated with cigars. But now there's the cost of maintenance, right? You have to maintain it for how many years? So 30 years of maintenance. So there's all the whatever cost that might incur. So is it really? I wonder how much. If I bought like today, if I bought this cigar for $200, how much have I really like? If I broke it down, how much did this really cost me to keep for 30 years? I don't have an answer. I'm just like, I think it's just a fun thought to like, oh. George says, not true about the smoke reviews. They were not totally blunt. Oh, okay. No C-Ray reviewer ever knew what they were smoking, let alone the price. Okay, but I wish that the online or even one in the book here would be great. I wish there was like more of this for us to like just to talk about, because I think now it'd be so much. So this is very interesting for us to talk about and review. I wish we had that from C. I would be, honestly, I would be like, if you were writing some of the reviews, if you were part of that review team, I think it'd be fascinating to like read what you guys had to say verbatim like this and be like, oh, that's what you guys thought then. And then compare it to what we think today. So the summary from Smoke: these cigars have the unfortunate distinction of being among the very best Dominican cigars around, and therefore one of the most difficult to obtain. Very true. If you could squeeze a box out of your local smoke shop, you'll be the envy of every cigar smoker in your town. This is true even to today. Like, I think that even today, when retailers get their Opus X, they put a cap on how many you can buy. Like, you would have to be like an extremely high level client to be able to get a box. From the near perfect construction to the insanely elaborate band, it is very elaborate, this cigar positively reeks of elegance. Just be sure to hit the ATM before you go to the store. Highly recommended. Now that we're into it, and good Lord, we are like, time-wise, we are deep, like half an hour, and we're still like not even through the first third. Like there's a richness starting to develop. Andrew says, value-wise, that cigar looks like it was smoked an hour and a half to 2 hours. So $11 or $25 seems worth it. But $11 in 1995, right? Which today translates to about $65. I mean, time-wise, if you buy a $65 cigar and it lasts you 2 hours, that's a good thing. Or I think it's a good thing. You want to have that longevity. You want to have that time to commune with the cigar, to like experience it. Especially if you spend that kind of money. If you're buying a $3 factory smoke from Drew Estate, like, you know, maybe you're mowing the lawn. Tony says we can compare old and new when we smoke the Tawai Black Label Old Man in the Sea alongside a modern private reserve Corona Gordo. Ooh, sounds very interesting. And Devin says dual wielding. That would be nice. Dual fisting that. You know, the first time I ever had an Old Man in the Sea, which was my first Culebra many, many years ago. Is that right? Maybe I had a Culebra from someone else. But I remember my first Culebra. I got it and I didn't understand what it was. I understood that it was like a cigar that historically it was a cigar that rollers brought home. And those who may not be familiar, Culebra is a 3 cigar collection where it's basically braided together because evidently back in the old days of Cuba, the personal allotment of cigar rollers, rolleros, was 3 cigars. And so in order for them to take it home, instead of holding a little bundle of them, they would twine them together. They would intertwine the cigars together so they'd be braided. And that's how they took them home. And so that's become something that some cigar manufacturers will make. And the idea is that you're supposed to take them apart. Like you're supposed to unwind them, separate the 3 out, and then smoke them individually, even though they look like bamboo good luck things. First time I had one, no one told me this. I had no idea. No idea. I thought the whole experience was to smoke all 3 at the same time. So you cut off all the ends and they're all tight together and you start smoking. And then as you smoke through it, you're like, what's going on here? I can't get a proper firm closure on the lips because there's so much gap between the 3 cigars. And then eventually you get to a point where they just all come apart because they're shorter now. So now you're holding 3 cigars. It was kind of madness, but now that I'm older, and that was only in 2024. No, probably back in the late 90s or something. George says that some of the CA team of editors were hilarious back in the day, but some of their comments would crow. And George says that was my project. The Old Man and Sea was my. That's a great idea. I loved it. I only have one Old Man and Sea left. I mean, he doesn't come out with them very often, I don't think. There really is a level of smoothness and refinement. Like there's definitely a spiciness, but it's really kind of like blended. A little bit of cedary note still to it. And I'm really surprised because if I was to have a double Chateau Fuente or even a Chateau Fuente that has that cedar wrapper on it, the cedar like holder, I would not be surprised to have a cedar characteristics on the cigar because it's so close proximity. Now, of course, it is in a Spanish cedar box the whole time for 30 years, so that may have something to do with it. But there is a light character of cedar to the blend, to the melange of the flavors. Devin says, time to make that a reality, and the new version is coming soon. Oh, all right. This is definitely a slow burning cigar. And you know me, I tend to smoke pretty fast, but we're not smoking too fast. Maybe I'm talking too much. Maybe that's the whole problem here. But that's the smoke. This was the Robusto, not this particular Churchill. But I think it's interesting to be smoking this now because, I feel like I don't have any Churchills to smoke anymore. Like Churchill's a very unusual cigar, I feel like, in modern times. Like we do a lot of Robustos, we do a lot of Toros, a lot of Belicosos. And Tony's asking, George, do you know what the blend is based off on? And Brian says, I haven't opened my Old Man in the Sea box. It's a huge box. Is it time or does it have another? I mean, why not smoke it now? Like this cigar tonight, right? 30 years old. There was a part when I started considering using this one, there was a part that's like, it's my last one. Maybe I should wait. But the real question is, why wait? What are we waiting for? Death? Is that it? We're waiting to die before we try to, and then never get to smoke it? Might as well smoke it now. Smoke that Old Man of the Sea tomorrow. Brian says, I'm aging this cigar. Aren't we all, man? Aren't we all? Aren't we all? You know, the flavor of the cigar is enough. Like, I don't really even need this. This is not bad with this cigar. Like, it's actually rather complimentary, especially now that the ice is melted. Maybe it's got a little more dilution to it. But all very nice. Brian says, I don't have another reason. I mean, what reason do you need? Really? Just smoke. Enjoy now. Enjoy now. Like I mentioned last week that I had finally broken into that last box of Revenges that I have. And I've been having trouble reconnecting with it. I think now that I'm into cigar number 7 from the box, I think I'm finding better footing. But it's cigar number 7 out of 12. So now there's 5. So now we're in like, we're going to run out soon. If I continue at the pace, we're going to run out at some point. So red alert is what's happening. Steven's with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? How's the weather down in Phoenix? There's complexity, there's richness. Maybe even now, like this last puff, maybe a little bit of creaminess, but not like many years ago, I had heard about creaminess in a cigar, and I never experienced it. I was like, what are you talking about? Creamy. There was never a cigar that I smoked that I would describe as creamy. And this is probably around 1996, 1997. And then one day, I got a Cuesta Rey. Maybe it was a Churchill. I think I still have the box. Cuesta Rey Churchill Tubo in glass tubes. And I bought one. And I was like, okay, let me try it. And man, that cigar. Oh, maybe we should put that in the round. That cigar. Wow, that was creamy. Like there was a definite lighter body, but definite creaminess to the smoke. And I was like, oh, this is creamy. And this last puff had a little bit of that. So it wasn't that smooth creamy. It's a little bit more of a complex creamy on this one, comparatively to that old Cuesta Rey, or what I remember from that old Cuesta Rey. George says, says to Brian, when you describe the Old Man in the Sea box, you see it's huge. Does that mean you have the retail display of 10 boxes inside? I have no idea. It's like the size. Oh, he does have that. He does have that one. Dude, I thought you meant big. Like mine is just like this big, right? Because it has one set of 3. You've got like 30 cigars. Smoke them now. You can afford to like smoke one box, one coffin box in there. And George says the 1993 Hoyo de Monterrey Epicure number 2 was the definition of creamy. You know what? Epicure number 2. Was that the one that was like super small? Like they were about that big? Came in like a cabinet box. Not a cabinet box, but just like the simple like Cuban style box. Is that right? Andrew says, Brian, great donuts and coffee Saturday if you can make it to Capitol. Yes, come down to Capitol. Inside that are 10 smaller boxes that include the actual kit. Time to smoke that sucker. Devin says the Davidoff 100th anniversary number 15 Robusto was the creamiest cigar ever. Fresh, but it did not age the same. Oh, so did it get harsher or it just fell out the flavor? Cabernet 25, they had no red. Yes, yes. You know what? But it was small, like about this big. Because if that is the case, I think I still have one cigar. I bought a box. After I first started smoking cigars, my first real cigar was, I was in the Philippines in 1992, I think it was, and I wanted to explore cigars. And because I was in the Philippines, I think, well, Philippines, we got cigars. I want to explore my heritage. And so I bought a box of Coronas from Tabacalera, which was perfectly fun. We smoked that cigar on this show at one point. I went up to Toronto that same time, and I went to one of the old Cuban cigar dealers in Toronto. And I was like, what do you have that's good? And I first, whatever, and partially because it was supposed to be good, and I think partially because of the price. Like, I was like, I can't afford to buy a box of Churchills, but I can afford to buy this box of small cigars from Hoyo de Monterrey, which I think may be the Epicure number 3. I'm going to go look. I still have the box. It's still small, sitting there. I think there's maybe like 1 or 2 cigars. I've been thinking about smoking them, but that's older than this one. Those would be the only 2. Those would be the 2 cigars that I think I still have. Oh no, I've got a couple other cigars that will predate this. Like I've got quite a few. Oh no, maybe I brought them for smoking at one point. Don Carlos number 3s. Did I ever bring that out one time, Don Carlos number 3s? If I did, then I don't have those anymore. Brian says, thanks for the invite. I'm going to try. You should definitely try. Come down. If anyone can come, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, coffee and cigars, live. Devin says, it tasted totally different. Tasted like an old log, but in the best way. Oh, okay. I was like, oh, log, that don't sound too good. Okay, excellent. George says, Thomas Hines tobacco. You're probably right. I do remember it being an older, what I recall in my mind, which could be completely wrong. It could have been a brand new, sleek, modern looking place. But what I recall in my mind was an older school, kind of like the tobacco shop at Ridgewood, that kind of like vibe going on. I think that's what it was like. Oh, we did smoke the Don Carlos. Okay. Maybe I don't have those anymore. I think those Don Carlos predated this one. Because those were some of the purchases that helped establish me as a reliable client for Jim Gilpatrick back in the day. Right, I'm going to say that this was 7, right? Where are we in this cigar? Let's have a look. My butt is starting to hurt. Oh yeah, I'm going to say that we are through the first third at least. So body, I think the body has been kind of medium, maybe medium to the mild, but I mean, it's been really beautiful. Like, I think that for both the body and the flavor, like it's been this really nice complexity. Some of that cedary notes. We've had moments of creaminess. We've had really interesting moments with the cigar, but it's been a really great, pleasurable melange of flavors, but not bold. Like, it's comparatively to now, this is not the bold flavors that we're used to. Even if I think about like some of our highest ranked cigars, the 20th anniversary Pepin Garcia, the Mille from Mer, I would say those cigars have distinct flavors. Where even though I described them then as melanges, like really beautiful, but they were much more distinct, right? This is a little more subdued. This is a little bit more reserved, a little softer, right? Which I think is reflective of the era. Even though we're still getting some notes of cedar and cream. But I would have to say that the body and the flavor would be excellent. nines. George asking, how is your coffee affecting the flavors? It's not bad. It's actually not interfering. I'm surprised. It's quite complimentary. Devin says, my Festool tape measure is still in my Festool box. Ooh. I was at a dealer a couple weeks ago where I've seen this at the dealer before. Like nobody's bought it for whatever reason. They had a 5-meter tape measure, Festool. And every time I go to this one dealer, they're up in Pennsylvania. I was thinking, maybe I should get that. $28. Not terribly expensive, $28. I mean, these are $10. So $28 kind of expensive. It's 5 meters, and I use mostly metric, even though this one again is in imperial. But I was like, I don't really need it. I got plenty of tape measures. So, Devin, are you also a man of Festool? So I've been making videos on YouTube about woodworking for the last couple months. And I was thinking about making a video about, like a lot of people will make videos about like the 10 beginning woodworking tools, 10 best woodworking tools for the beginner. That's not expensive. Cheap woodworking tools for the starting. And I was thinking, maybe I'll make one of those. And then I was thinking, you know what? Why? Everybody and their mother makes videos about how to save money, how to buy the tool that'll work. And I was thinking, you know what? Maybe we should make a video where it's like, what are the 10 best woodworking tools at any price, right? Like, if you want, like, because I was talking to, when I was up in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh for a woodworking event at the beginning last month, and there's a guy that owns a company in Connecticut called Hyper Kitten Tools, and this guy Josh, buys a lot of vintage tools and sells them to whoever, and people that buy vintage hand tools like the planes and all that, they will refurbish them and make them working new again. That's at least that's the whole idea. And we were talking. He's like, yeah, he went to the Fine Woodworking event. So there's Fine Woodworking magazine and there's Popular Woodworking magazine. There are two different magazines owned by the same company now, but two different worlds of magazines. And I was like, and he came to the Fine Woodworking event that I went to in April. And he was like, I was kind of strange to be there. And I was like, why? He's like, because, most of the Fine Woodworking guys aren't really into vintage tools, the readership. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And so I was talking to the editor of Pop Woodworking, Logan. And I was like, dude, is this true? He's like, you know what? It's like, it does sound like that's true. That the people that read Fine Woodworking tend to be people that are buying instead of like buying a hand plane used and then refurbishing it, they're just going to go to Lee Nielsen and buy the expensive one that's brand new and they don't have to do anything. And I was like, there's got to be a whole world of people out there like that probably wants to know, like, what is the most expensive tool you could buy? So I was like, maybe we'll do that. Oh, Devin, just making a joke. Gotcha. George says, sorry, I'm behind now. Had to step away. No, you're not. We're still in the same place. We're still enjoying the cigar. Right now, with that last puff, a little bit of brightness, a little bit of kind of reflective of that lime that we tasted early on in the cold draw. A little hint of that. I don't know if that's something that's going to develop more, but that was interesting. So, Rusty, if you're still with us, man, how are things in Carolina? And what part of Carolina are you in? Oh, I see what Devin's talking about. You can see the Festool box right here. I was like, I don't think you can see a Festool box behind me. Oh, yeah, there's one right there. Like people talk about, like when it comes to Festool, right? These boxes. Like some people build like walls of the boxes, and I've over the past year or so, I've intentionally stayed away from that. That's not necessarily true now, but for the past year, I've tried to put them in places where they would be low, so so people wouldn't really see them, because it just kind of like the way it works out better instead of having this huge, vast expanse of the boxes. Definitely, there's this brightness, this citrusy note that's coming out now in the blend of the cigar. Like if I try to inhale, it's light. Like I'm terrible at retrohaling, so. But definitely there's now that like line starting to come through. That's interesting. So this Sunday is also Father's Day. If you have what's going on, anything interesting happening? I don't have anything interesting happening. George says citrus was a defining aspect of the Fuente Fuente Opus X flavor range. Ooh. I mean, it's a very interesting component to the flavor, especially like with the cold draw. Like that was like superb. This is just giving interesting depth and complexity. And I'm glad it's something that's coming now versus earlier on, because it's adding extra dimension to the experience. I need to slow down maybe because that last puff is starting to pull a little bit of heat, and you can even see there's a little bit of angularity happening to the burn. George says deepening complexity. You know, the more that I look at this, like I don't know if I would say like I know that some of the reviews we read were talk about this being like Colorado Maduro. To me, it kind of has more of a rosado color. It's not a rosado wrapper, but it has that kind of coloration. It's kind of more reddish brown. And I wonder, like back in the day, 1995, was this more of a Maduro color? Like now we have Maduros, and it's much more. And correct me if I'm wrong, George. My limited knowledge in this part of the tobacco world, the Maduro part, is it a matter of fermentation to get the darkness to the wrapper, or is it just Maduro as in mature, where it just is a longer aged cigar, not necessarily a change or reflection of the color? If it's a natural Maduro, it's a longer fermentation process. Ah, okay. Colorado is correct, not Colorado Maduro. Yeah, because I was wondering, like, it looks very light for what I would think is a Maduro. And Rosado is a very old designation, now back in popular usage. Rosado meaning, I presume means it's more of a red shaded. As you can see here, I've got some slabs behind me. These are walnut slabs. And I'm getting ready to make a table with them. But you can see here behind me that the colors are not even, right? They're on the edges. There's what we call the sapwood. Down here, right? There's the sapwood, right? So it's all walnut table. So I was thinking I got to cut those sapwood off. And I was talking with one of the woodworkers, and he's like, you can just tint it. I was like, what tinted? I mean, it's like, take this tint and tint it. So I was playing around with that today. And I got this offcut. So you can buy these tints, these aniline dyes, and you can see this here, the dark part. Well, that's a little bit too heavy, right? That's maybe that looks like walnut, like a deep walnut, but when I applied it, I was like, oh, that looks black. But this one, I think, is a little bit more effective, right? So right here is that white layer that you see behind me. But with the dyeing, it looks tonality, it's pretty close. Like it probably needs it needs more work, but I was just trying to like get a feel for it. This way you can get greater yield out of the wood rather than just necessarily having to cut this part off. Because this is the live edge here, right? Ryan says, I'm training a new guy from the ARC in the morning, so I need to drop. Take care. Hopefully I can join you guys Saturday. Although I have additional trainings. Oh, man. Well, come down. We'll start at 10. So do your training at 8 and come down after. And George says, I've smoked one Opus in my life on 5/7/23. Whoa. I'm curious to know how you remember it was May 7th, 2023. It was good. I was with Tony in PA at the shop. It was good, very good, but I must say I'm not hunting them down. Maybe further research needs to be done. I mean, I am curious now that we're smoking this one about trying a modern Opus X. Hopefully I can find one sooner than later because this experience will be fresher. But I think it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting. Devin says, and they used to say, or still do today, that New World cigars don't age. I wonder. I mean, I don't know. I would think that like some New World cigars, and I think it's probably like back here, right? If you make something of quality, perhaps with aging in mind, it will have longevity. Like I think about in the world of coffee, and most people don't think about coffee as an aging product. I do, right? We had coffees that we aged for like 12 years, but not, and we would age coffees for years on end. The longest was 12. But it would take a certain coffee to do that. Like for certain coffees that maybe the processing wasn't as good or as well done or whatever, they would become hollow after a couple of years in the green state. But some would develop greater complexity or just differing complexity. Like this one, the 2007 Edido Misty Valley. When I first tasted that, this beautiful blueberry like complexity, like super deep blueberry, like just fabulous fruit. I bought a bag and I laid it down. I mean, I not laid it down. I mean, I put it into reserve and we kept it and only released it once a year for many years around Christmas time where we would roast it and see how. And while we started out in 2008 as a very fruit-forward blueberry bomb kind of coffee, by the time we reached like 2015, it had mellowed and aged into more of a refined coffee with a very distinct like Cabernet Sauvignon kind of characteristic to it, like ruby reds and just deeper complexity and just smoother character. Not the intensity of the fruit that it used to have, more refined, more robust, not robust, but more refined and more smooth. But other coffees that we had, like this one from Rancho San Francisco in Mexico, like great coffee to begin with, but it just didn't have the legs. So after about 5 years, it really was a hollower version of itself. So I would think some of the nicer quality cigars, maybe like the Mirfell cigars, the highest end, like the 20th anniversaries of the Pepin, would be of the quality of tobaccos that would be able to withstand long-term aging. George says, most consumers today think of Maduro as color, not process, but in fact, that's what it is, so the resulting shades vary widely. Maduro can be more reddish than black, which is actually more correctly described as oscuro. I am familiar with the idea that it being aged, but I do, wonder about, because we do see a lot of coloration. And since I smoke a lot of Revenges, there's a lot of that too. And George Brightman says, George, join us for Opus X Fest coming soon to a location near you. And Tony says that which some would designate as a double Maduro. I guess we're talking about the Oscuro. And double Maduros, George, are typically used first by Honduran cigar brands and now occasionally by Nica manufacturers, are near black. Ooh. Think Punch or Hoyo, even Excalibur from Villazon in Honduras. And George Juan says, let me know about the Opus X Fest. I'm interested to see what they offer. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm also interested too now. Yeah, this last puff. Interesting. I don't know if maybe because my mind is wandering and maybe I'm open to it. Could be suggestion, but I don't know where the suggestion is. But I had a momentary of candy. Not non-distinct candy, but a candy character of sweetness. But not sweetness, but like just a candy-esque character. Like a glassy kind of, like candy. Like you've taken sugar and cooked it to 430 degrees. I want to say cherry candy, but I don't know if that's because I'm tasting cherry candy or I just like cherry candy. Yeah, definitely. There's a sweetness, even on the finish right now. There's a sweetness on the palate. Whoa, that's wild. So I got a little bit of the retro here, just a little bit, not really much. Unlike modern cigars, it's actually kind of smooth in the nostrils. Huh. Yeah, there's definitely like a residual sweetness on the palate now. Rusty says, speaking of coffee aging, last time I was in Hawaii in 2024, Mom and I took some Rusty's Hawaiian beans and aged them with some charred bourbon staves from Maker's Mark. She forgot them, so it was aged untouched. Oh. And how were they? And can we get some? And George says, I propose we do a Saturday at Capitol as a live show. I'll buy the first round of Opus, then we can all choose from the many choices they will have on offer. Ooh. All right, we can definitely do that. By the way, one of the original flavors that Carlito noted was a distinct black cherry. Really? Well, that's interesting because it's still, I wouldn't say it's black cherry, but definitely like a cherry candy. Like, the hard candies you eat. Like that was something that I definitely had a perception of. Okay, so I think we should say that's our second third, which is interesting because, I think body is still very consistent, and I'm going to say excellent at 9, still very medium. But this additional of the little bit of like that fruitiness, that little bit of citrusy, and then finally with this candy-esque, I mean, that really is just kind of giving us more. So I'm going to say 9.5. So excellent plus. So it's escalated from the 9 that we had in the first part, the first third. Will it go more? Who knows? We'll see. George says cough drops. Ooh, that could be a good way to put it. Like the old Ludens, says Tony. Oh, yes. Kind of, yeah. Kind of without that medicinal quality to the Ludens, right? More like just clear cherry candy. At least that's what I'm getting. George says it's almost 10 and you have plenty of smoking left. It's all right. There's no school tomorrow, right? So we're good. Or should we end now? All right. Have a good one. See you next time. No, we're continuing. We're continuing on. Rusty says Ludens were never cough drops. Candy all the okay. I don't know Ludens. I don't think I know Ludens. Or is that the one in the white box? George says the essence of black cherry. Yeah. I love black cherry. Don't get me wrong. I love black cherry, but I feel like it's much more the red cherry, like the regular, at least the candy. Which who knows? Maybe it is a black cherry flavor. I don't know. But it is very surprising. It was very surprising. It's in that last puff. I don't really think I got. Well, I'll see, but I feel like it's diminished a little bit now. But that cherry candy was very surprising and very like positive. Like it was just like, whoa, that is completely from left field now. George says that Luden's cough drops was how they were labeled. Purported and not reported. Oh, they reported they were. Oh, gotcha. I think I need some more coffee because I'm running out. So I'm going to pour a little bit more, put a little more ice. I think I'm going to make a different blend for the cold brew that we're going to serve on Saturday. Some of this Mexican and Brazil to get a little bit of, but I think we're going to bring in some other notes of like, we have this Yemeni coffee. This Yemeni coffee is a natural process, so it's got a lot of fruit characters to it, a little bit more fruit tones. And I think that we're going to incorporate some of that into it as well. I'm working on it. Like the nice thing about this is that we've been smoking a while. It's not a heavy cigar. It's not an overwhelming cigar. Now I know in the reviews, they talked how the body was heavier. But again, back to this whole thing of the reviews are in 1995, 1996. The standard back then for what was power and body is different than it is today. I think it's very complimentary. I think it's very lovely. But I don't think it's a heavy cigar. It's an elegant smoking cigar. It's got great complexity, surprising experiences along the way. The 300 episodes, so that's 20 weeks from now in the fall that we can do. But maybe summertime might, or sometime in the summer, maybe on a day when it's not so hot yet, or because 20 weeks is what? Presuming I don't get ill again like I did last year. Like I've actually been kind of worried about that. I found some ticks a couple times so far. And I'm like, oh God, here we go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We're talking sometime in November, if that's the case. George says, over 3 decades, I guarantee your cigar has mellowed. I would imagine so. Tony says, we also need to figure out a Saturday where we can do the Texas barbecue in Pennsylvania and the shop that's right over there, right near there for an outing. The barbecue is there only on Saturdays. All right, let's go. Oh, you know, the problem is now, The 27th, we should do 27th. We can't because after that is the 4th of July. And then after the 4th of July, I'm supposed to go to New England again. That definitely, there's a that sweet character is definitely lingering on. But the draw is still really lovely. I mean, smoke production, I wouldn't say smoke production is copious, but it's ample. George says, I propose we do Opus Fest in late July because I will get Carlito to send us some special smokes. Late July it is then. If Carlito is going to send us some stuff, yes. 25th? 25th is the last Saturday in July, and then August 1st is the next Saturday. But let's say yes to late July. And let me double check. I told my niece that I would go with her to look at colleges in Toronto. So I'm not sure exactly when she wants to do that. My niece is going to be a junior next year in high school, and so she's already started to look at colleges. So it's like, it's really a crisis. Like kids getting older. It's like, oh, you remember when they were little teeny tiny, like cute things that ran around? Now they're sophisticated and like posting on Instagram and YouTube. You're like, what's going on here? Okay, gotta slow down. I feel like those last couple puffs, maybe going a little bit harder on it. Starting to get a little bit warmer. Maybe a little bit of. Tony's asking, for the Filipinos in the house, did anyone watch the Joe Coy movie Easter Sunday? I did. Did I? I think I did. If I did, well. So if you watch the trailers, I remember the trailers came up because I went to his. He came and did a performance at Maryland Live. And you watch him on specials on YouTube or on television, and you watch clips of him on television. It's very clever. It's very interesting, very funny. It's always kind of fun to watch someone talk about, the culture and make jokes about it, right? Because it's interesting and it's reflective, of your experience. So when my friends were like, let's go see him live. All right, let's go. $65 to get in, which I guess in terms of concerts is not a terrible amount of money. But, when I go to a concert, I would like the performer to be prepared. Like if I went to see Duran Duran and they were like trying to figure out how to play Save a Prayer, I'd be a little bit disappointed. Now, I don't expect to go to a show, a comedy show, and have him rehash the same jokes that we've seen on YouTube. But I would like to have him have material that's prepared, new material. But instead, we spent like an hour and a half, or whatever it was, where all he did was riff on people in the audience and just kind of like, and he even said that he was working on a new special. So he's like, this is material that may end up in the special. So basically, he just didn't prepare at all. He just came and winged it. And I was like, you know what? I took the time to come and spend this time with you and spend my money. More importantly, I took the time and you were not prepared. So I was immediate. So after that, I've not been a big proponent of Joe Coy because you wasted my time. Like we made the effort to come see you, make the effort to like show up. But at that performance, it was right when they were releasing the trailer for Easter Sunday, so I watched it. And maybe this is part of the marketing team whatever marketing firm they have. But they hyped it up that Easter Sunday is some kind of Super Bowl. I think they even said this Super Bowl of Filipino like events. And if you know anything about Filipino, and if you know anything about Filipino culture, especially if you are Filipino, you know that there is one holiday that is truly the Super Bowl of holidays for the Filipino people around the world. There's only one. There's no question. There's no ambiguity. There's no like, is this the one? Yeah, I don't know. Is it? Yeah, it is. Are you sure? Yeah, it is. It's none of that. It's Christmas. Filipinos in the Philippines are preparing for Christmas in September. Like there's no question. And just like Thanksgiving is here in the United States, where people make the effort to go to family and friends in other parts of the country. Christmas time is when Filipinos migrate. They go to the Philippines. They go to other families. They get together in big families, big whole families. The rest of the year, nobody cares, right? Or they care less, right? It's not. My family does have a relatively sizable gathering at Easter Sunday at my aunt's house. We all go there, but like people are missing every year. But Christmas time, everybody makes effort. So when they first said that in the trailer, I was kind of like, huh, what? So I watched the trailer again, online. And I was like, huh. And I don't know. I think also, for me personally, right? I don't know if Rusty feels this way or not, but there is, to me, a cultural distinction between Filipinos that grew up on the East Coast and even like in other parts of the Midwest versus Filipinos that grew up on the West Coast. There's a bigger Filipino community on the West Coast, so there's greater community identity amongst a larger community of people you don't know. Here in Baltimore, growing up, if you're a Filipino, you knew pretty much all the Filipinos here. So there was no like, oh, who are those guys, right? We're like, oh yeah, that's that dude, right? And so culturally, it's very different. Like when I talk to Filipinos that grew up on the West Coast, there is a very big cultural difference. That's noticeable, but only noticeable if you are in it. Right? So I don't know if that movie is more reflective of their. I mean, it's definitely more reflective of their experiences than ours. So I don't know. I'm almost 100% sure that I saw Easter Sunday because I think they got into a car accident or a car chase or something like that. But it didn't speak to me at all. I was like, right. So good effort that they have a movie that's about Filipino culture, but Rusty says, I saw the movie. What did you think about it, Rusty? I'm interested in what you think. There's definitely this cherry candy. It's very light. Like it's not like you're sucking on cherry candy, but it's just kind of lingering on the tongue. Tony says, sadly, thanks to Matt Rife, roofing on the audience is the new standard for comedy shows. Oh, riffing on the audience. I'm not familiar with Matt Rife, but still. Yeah. I mean, if you're funny, like I just didn't think a lot of what he was riffing on was funny. It's just like, all right, that's boring now. Like, and I came to be entertained, right? It's kind of like in Gladiator. Are you not entertained? No, I'm not entertained, dude. It's like, I was just angry. I was angry. I was like, if you ask, like, if you ask my friends who went with me, they're just like, if you ask them, hey, what do you think of the show? They're like, oh, he hated it. Like, oh yeah, I hated it. Andrew says, in contrast, I once went to a concert, the band, which was so prepared I felt ripped off because I could have had the exact experience putting my LP. Oh, okay, that's not good. I don't even know. What, are you sure it wasn't pre-recorded? One of the best concert experiences I ever had from entertainment and technical standpoint was I was dating this girl, Susan, and she was like, let's go see 10,000 Maniacs. This is a long time. It was like the 90s. And I was like, all right, let's go. And so she took me to 10,000 Maniacs at Constitution Hall in DC. And I was so like, it was so good. They were really good in concert, but what was really great was the sound. Like the way they did the sound was so awesome. I was like, man, this show sounds immaculate. Like I was so moved by the way that it sounded. I went to the sound guy after the show and I was like, hey man, this shit sounded awesome. I was like, this is the best sounding concert I've ever been to. And Tony says, I don't think anybody does as good a job with comedy shows these days as Fluffy. I would have to, I'm inclined to agree. Like what really impressed me with Fluffy, with was it Gabriel Iglesias, right? Is he did a show in Hawaii at the Hawaii Theater. And, you know, a lot of you know that I lived in Hawaii. So I'm very familiar with local culture there. Many years ago, I used to be a fan of Sarah Silverman. And then one day, I got her DVD or something. And she was making jokes about something, cultural jokes or whatever jokes. But it was like, she just didn't hit it because, you know, in order to make jokes about anything, you really have to understand the culture in order to get that nuance correct. If your nuance is off, you totally blew it. And that's where I think Fluffy was amazing. Like, I don't know how well it is for other shows because I don't know the other cultures he may be engaging with, but I do know Hawaii culture. And man, the stuff that he was like making jokes about, you were like, this guy had to have lived here, right? This guy, he knew nuance of like local culture that was like so well done. I was like, I'm laughing my ass off. Like I was like, oh my God, this guy's fucking hilarious. Like it was great. Like it's really well done. And I think that's really where comedy has to perform. It's like you have to understand what you're joking about. You have to touch just right. You know, like what do they say? What is comedy about? About timing. Steven says back in the day, one of the world dominant tobacco plantation was in the Philippines. Oh yes, the Flor de Isabela of Isabela Tabacalera. You know, Stephen, I don't know if there were, if I remember correctly, Flor de Isabela was a different operation than Tabacalera. Is that right? Or maybe they were the same. There used to be two operations, I believe. Oh no, maybe no. It was Tabacalera had their factory in Isabela province. Maybe that's what it was. Rusty says, growing up here in New Jersey, all the Filipinos in town knew each other, and we celebrated the three big holidays. Oh, see, like, I think your experience in New Jersey would be very similar to what we experience here in Maryland, but which is very different than what they experience in California. Like really, here where we grew up, like you knew pretty much all the Filipinos. You knew all the girls. We go to California, and we would meet girls and be like, "Oh my God, who is that?" Like my brother introduced me to this one girl he knew from California, and like her level was like scorching. I was like, "Oh my God!" Like it's that response you have to someone that you think is super attractive, so you're like stupid. And I mean, I was like, "Ah." My combustion has gone out. And like, even to this day, I think about her, man. She's like fire. That girl was fire. I'm a little bit sad that it went out. Maybe because we're getting too close to the end. Maybe there's a little bit more like moisture buildup here. I feel like maybe that's the case because I feel like this is a little bit harder to relight. A little bit of acidity now, but let's see what happens. George says, I saw the band live at Hershey Park, and it was an outdoor concert. So good, my favorite band, and they sounded awesome. Oh, the band. The band is the band, right? Okay, sorry. You know, I don't know the band. And George says, I saw Traffic do a show at William and Mary College, probably 1972. They were touring to promote Low Spark of the High Heeled Boys, which was a studio album, and their live show was a perfect expression. Oh, man. I got to be honest. I'm not familiar with those bands. But it sounds like an awesome time. And George One says, the crowd was electric. So much fun. College was a good, it was a good time. I saw In Excess at College Park one year at the Cole Field House. My friend Christine wanted to go, so we went. She was a big fan of Michael Hutchence, so we got she was like, we got to get to the front. So we got there early. We got to the front of the stage. We got the whole concert, and this is in like the what was that? The white colored album, not Kick, before Kick, Shabu Shaba. No, not Shabu Shaba. After Shabu Shaba, whatever that was. And man, we had a great time. He even gave her like his like gin and tonic. I was like, oh, nice. Stop giving my girl some. Don't give her no drinks. George says that one of the best concerts I ever saw was Counterpoint to Andrew. And Andrew says, I love the band, but they just didn't interact with the live audience. Oh, yeah. I think it's good if they interact. Like, I think there should be some interaction. George says Tabacconist was the cheaper version of the Filipino cigars. Next to For de la Alhambra. Oh, that was probably one, but from the same factory, which was state-owned. Oh, okay. And George says the band originally formed as Bob Dylan's backup for his tours. Oh, okay, gotcha. Now I'm familiar. And George says The Last Waltz, the band's final show, is the best concert movie ever made. Oh, interesting. And Andrew says the band with Dylan when Planet Waves album came out was great. Oh. All right, this cigar, while I had to relight it, had a little bit of acridity to it when I relit it, has quickly returned to form at this last puff. Back with that cherry-esque character, good rounded flavor, good body. And Tony says the best show I ever saw live was Ned Atomic Dustbin at the 930 Club. Outstanding, high energy, amazing. Ooh, that sounds great. Like small club venues. I remember one year, and this is maybe like 20 years ago. I was actually in Towson, Maryland, just walking around one day. And there was the Record Theater, which is an old movie theater that they converted into a live music venue. And they had on the marquee, it was like, tonight, Les Nubians. And Les Nubians, if you're not familiar, is a duo, sisters, Somali, I think they're Somali, from France. And they do this like kind of like Sade, kind of jazzy. Like if you like Sade's music, you will love Les Nubians. And I loved them, right? I was listening to they only had like 2 albums, but I was like totally into them. And I was like, oh my God, they're here. I have to go. So I came back that night, went to the show, had a great time. Small venue, small turnout. Very nice way to see a show. Andrew says the band and Dylan at large was a great concert. Oh, that sounds good. And Tony says that Tori Amos at the Lizer Auditorium on her first tour was pretty damn good too. Oh, damn. And George says best show ever, Rolling Stones at RFK with Stevie Wonder as the opening act. They jammed together that sounds awesome. I think I only saw one concert at RFK. My mom took me because I was super young. Like I was not of driving age yet. It was the Jacksons during their Victory tour. I was a big Michael Jackson fan. So I was like, oh, Michael Jackson, be awesome. But I've never seen Michael Jackson as Michael Jackson, only Michael Jackson with his brothers. I never did get to see any of his tours after that. Steven says the best bands played stadiums. I saw U2 Zoo TV. Whoa. Mind-blowing experience broadcasting. That's awesome. I would love to see U2. But man, I hear it's like wildly expensive. Actually, the one that I wished I had gone to, which I would never have done this back in those days, because but you see that album live at Red Rocks, and be like, oh, that would have been an awesome concert to go to. But there was a time when I used to do like a kind of roadie kind of thing. So I've seen from backstage, I've seen what's his name? Frank Zappa. We did a Zappa show at Towson University one year. That was really great. Hung out with his saxophonist for the whole day. And they were like, all right, let's play. But I wasn't really too familiar with all of his music until that show. And I was like, oh yeah, this is some hella good stuff. Rusty says, got to bow out. Body's giving out, man. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us, Rusty. Enjoy your trip. Tony says, the other great show that I saw was Prince and the Revolution. Oh, man, I never saw Prince. And he basically did the whole Purple Rain album. Oh, that sounds great. That would have been awesome. I saw Public Enemy a lot. I saw Public Enemy like 2 or 3 times. That was really good. I was a big fan of Public Enemy back then. George Brightman says, seeing the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East in the 70s wasn't too shabby either. Oh, no, not at all. Stood next to Miles Davis for the whole show. Nice. That's awesome. I mean, that's some classic. Those are some classics. We've had good experiences collectively, I think. Good times, good experiences. And George says, Prince at Constitution Hall with more stay in the time. Oh, no, that's awesome. That speaks to me very well. Yeah, I don't think I saw Prince. Would have been awesome, though. My first concert that I never actually went to, but I had tickets to, was I was in 8th grade. Somehow I got tickets to AC/DC. My mom would not allow me to go. And I was like, crushed. I was like, crushed. My best friend and I were going to go at the time. And I was like, then she was like, no, you can't go to that. I was like, well, you're too young. I was like, Andrew says, great live, short, spontaneous music I experienced was Springsteen live on the street at Morning TV Studio at Times Square. Whoa. And Paul McCartney at the marquee of the CBS studio. Oh, that's amazing. That would have been amazing to see. Steven says, how about the loudest concert? I had to leave early because Ted Nugent was just... You know that a concert is loud. If you're young and you're like, oh, God, it's too loud for me. Like if you're like, in your teens, you're like, okay, I got to go because this is too much. That's loud. I've never had the experience. Usually your ears are ringing after the concert. You're like, I can't really hear. George Sam says, I saw John Coltrane's son at Birdland in New York City. Ooh. It was my brother's idea. Not my type of music, but awesome. Ooh, that's awesome. I saw, as far as like here in Baltimore one year, I was like, I must have been 16. No, I must have been 17 years old. I was 17 years old because I was driving and I brought this girl to go see. I wanted to take her out. So I took her out. Wanted to be sophisticated, right? So me and my cousin had whoever he was dating then. I was kind of seeing this one girl, so we brought him out. Wanted to be sophisticated, right? So we went. There used to be this place downtown Baltimore called Ethel's Place. Ethel Ennis was an old jazz singer. She had her own restaurant and music venue. Great spot. Wynton Marsalis. And I was like, Wynton Marsalis, let's go see Wynton. So we're there. We are like 17. Like we look young. Like, we had to look like super young. And we're in this like club. And we're sitting there and they were like, would you like something to drink? How about some white wine, please? Oh man, we had to look like babies compared to everybody in that place. So they're like, white wine? Who's this Asian kid asking for white wine? They served us. And we were cool about it. We didn't drink a lot. We just, just trying to be sophisticated, trying to show off for our ladies, I know they saw that, but they were like, all right, we're we're gonna help these guys out. I was like, thank you, baby. You're amazing. And George says he saw James Brown at the old original Uline Arena back in DC back in the 60s. Whoa. I was probably one of 10 white people. That's awesome. Andrew says, bring it back to cigars is a great show at Birdland with smoke. Ooh. You know, a show like that, like I went to see back in like it must have been like 87. I think it was 87. Again, I was a big fan of Public Enemy, right? So I was like, man, Public Enemy. They came to the Baltimore Civic Center as part of the Fresh Fest. So my friend Rusty and I went, and he was a white kid. I was Asian, Filipino kid. I think we're the only ones there, or like very few of us were there. And the Fresh Fest had PE, EPMD. God, who else was in the Fresh? I can't remember the rest. I think maybe was Ice. No, Ice-T was not part of that. But that was a great time. That was crazy. It was just like craziness. And Andrew says, smokes with Christian McBride. Ooh, nice. Steven says, I was invited to a private concert with Toto Jackson, and that was the Tito Jackson. And Tony says, buddies are closing, so good night. All right, have a good one. Good to see you guys. Have a great one. Tito Dango. Oh, Tito. I mean, this cigar really has lasted us a long time. We started this about 2 hours ago. I think about 8:30. Now we're at 10:30. Wow, it's really... Actually, it's getting late. I still have to prepare stuff for tomorrow's morning stream, which I think I'm going to have to pivot on the topic now. Because I'm like, oh, I don't have the time to prepare what I was planning. Is it time to... I mean, we still have so much time left. I mean, if I had to put the rating now, I would think it'd be pretty static from the second, third. Like we haven't had dramatic change, but it hasn't degraded. I mean, it did go out, but I wouldn't take that against it because the recovery was so quick. So let's say, if we were to do that, I'm going to say 9.5 for the flavor, 9 for the body. So very consistent in performance. Burn and draw. So we did have a little bit of fall in performance of the burn. Draw has been solid. So we did have it go out. So I'm going to say 8.75. Consistency, I'm going to say excellent, 9. And why not higher on consistency? I mean, it has been consistently good. But it has changed for the positive, but it has changed. Now, overall score. So if we look at our overall score, now overall score is not an average of the scores. It should be informed by the score. So it should not be something where we've got 9.5, 9.9, 9.59, 9.59, 8.759. It should not be 8.5, right? Like that would not make any sense. It should be congruent with what we've experienced. A lot of 9.5. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. but more 9s. So I would say 9. Steven says, Joe Cocker was on my bucket list years ago, and I did experience that remarkable show. Ooh, Joe Cocker. Wow, I've heard that name in years. And George says, this should be near at the top of the ratings in show history. Ooh, I already know the answer to that. And Andrew says, tomorrow's cigar is the opus you placed in my humidor. Thanks. Awesome. So after looking at, we've got fragrance cold draw, 9.5. Flavor for the first third and body, 9 for each. We had an increase in flavor performance in the second third, so 9.5. Body, 9. Flavor for the third, for the last third, 9.5. So it held its position, 9.5. Body also held position 9. So body throughout 9s. Burn and draw, it suffered a little bit at 8.75 because it went out. Consistency, 9. Then overall, I said 9, which gives us a total score of 91.25. Right? 91.25. Oh. So awesome. Like, I think that overall, very few cigars will get over 90 or even reach 90. So this is very solid, especially for a cigar that should have been diminished by time, or maybe it is diminished by time, and would be even more of a powerhouse. Devin says, gotta head out. Have a great night, everyone. You too, Devin. Have a wonderful night there. Thanks for tuning in. I mean, this is very, very good. Like, this is excellent. And you were worried that I would have things to say about it. Actually, I was worried about that too. Like I said, when we started out, my personal stance on Opus X has not been totally bullish. This was a very pleasant experience to overturn my position on it. And the length, the longevity of the cigar is super surprising. I mean, we just spent a lot of time talking about it, but even through all the talking, it didn't lose performance. It didn't really even go out. Like, I was really surprised when it went out in the earlier in this third, because we had spurts where I didn't puff on it for longer than at that time that it lost combustion. So that was a very strange anomaly to happen. But there it is, 91.5. I'm going to sign off now because, it should be that time. Plus, I sit on a steel stool with no padding, which for 2 hours is usually no problem. Now they're pushing 3. My butt is hurting. So, George says, I got to bounce. I got to meet Carlito in the morning. Good to see you. Andrew, cheers to you as well. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As always, back again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with more of the Coffee and Cigars live stream. So hope you have a great one. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.